I missed Christmas dinner with my daughter because of an urgent matter. But when my neighbor sent me a video of my son-in-law hitting my daughter while my 5-year-old granddaughter stood there terrified. I drove through the night to get home. It felt like the longest drive of my life. I kicked the door open and burst in just when they thought they had won. They looked at each other. Fear was written all over their faces. I said 2 words that made them run. What happened next changed everything. Those 2 words changed everything. But before I explain, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? If this story already has you on edge, you're in the right place. The phone rang while I was reviewing case files in my Dallas hotel room. Friday night, December 22nd, and the city below sparkled with Christmas lights I barely noticed anymore. 30 years as a family law attorney had taught me to keep working when others celebrated. I recognized my daughter's number immediately. Rebecca, hey, sweetheart. Hi, Dad. Her voice came through tight, too bright. I'd heard that tone before in depositions from witnesses trying to hide something. I know this is last minute, but would you be able to come for Christmas dinner? It would mean so much to Grace. I leaned back in the desk chair. I'd love to, but I've got the Bennett mediation on the 24th. The family's been fighting over their mother's estate for 2 years. If I don't get this resolved now. Right, of course. Work. The words came out flat. We understand. Then I heard him. Tyler's voice in the background loud enough to carry through the phone, dripping with contempt. Tell the old man we'll be just fine without him anyway. My jaw tightened. Rebecca said nothing, didn't defend me, didn't tell him to shut his mouth. Just silence. Rebecca, I said carefully using my mediator voice, is everything okay there? Everything's great. Too fast. Too emphatic. Tyler's just stressed about year-end sales quotas. You know how car dealerships get around the holidays? I knew what evasion sounded like. I'd been doing this work long enough to read the silences between words. Tell Grace I'm sorry, I said. I'll make it up to her, I promise. She made you a card, drew dinosaurs with colored pencils. My granddaughter, 5 years old, fierce love for anything prehistoric. Thinking about disappointing her made my chest ache. Merry Christmas, Dad! She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, watching the screen fade to black. Tyler's voice echoed in my head. The old man. Like age was weakness. Like distance meant indifference. My hand moved to my tablet, opening the app connected to the smart thermostats I'd installed at Rebecca's house last September. Except they weren't thermostats. They were security cameras recording everything at 4729 Cedar Lane in Austin. I'd installed them after Grace's birthday party. Rebecca had gone to the kitchen, and I'd found Grace showing me her drawings. Most were typical 5-year-old art princess's rainbows. But one stopped me cold. A stick figure labeled Daddy, in Grace's careful letters. The figure's face was all sharp, angry lines, red marks on the hands. Another figure, Mommy, lying on the ground. That's Daddy, when he's mad, Grace had explained matter of fact. I'd asked Rebecca about it later. She'd laughed it off. Tyler just has a temper sometimes. Grace dramatizes everything. But I knew something else. I knew what denial looked like. And I knew that little girls didn't draw pictures of angry fathers unless they'd seen something that scared them. So I'd installed the cameras. Told Tyler they were energy efficient, would save money on heating bills. He'd barely looked at them. 3 months of footage uploading quietly to my private cloud server. I'd been checking periodically, seeing nothing alarming. Until tonight. Sitting in this Dallas hotel room, listening to Tyler's contempt and Rebecca's fear, I felt that sensation in my gut. The one that 30 years in family law had honed to a razor edge. The one that told me when someone was in danger, when silence meant suffering, when normal wasn't normal at all. I opened the camera app on my tablet. The living room feed showed an empty couch. Kitchen feed clear. Everything looked fine, but nothing felt fine. Something was wrong. 30 years as a family law attorney had taught me to trust that instinct. The text came through at 9:43. Unknown number. Texas area code. Mr. Foster, you need to see this. Urgent. Then a video file. Large. Taking forever to download over the hotel Wi-Fi. A second text. This is Matthew Ross. Your neighbor across from Rebecca. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. Matthew Ross. Retired history teacher. I'd met him twice, maybe 3 times. Helped them move in 5 years ago. Quiet guy. the kind who minded his own business until business demanded otherwise. The video finally loaded. I pressed play. My daughter's dining room, the one I'd helped her paint last spring, Christmas lights blinking in the window, the table set for dinner, and standing near the kitchen doorway, Rebecca in a green dress. Tyler's voice came first slurred and loud. Then I saw him red-faced drunk, waving papers in one hand. Barbara stood by the table, wine glass in her other hand, her face twisted, with something that looked like satisfaction. "Sign it!" Tyler shoved the papers toward Rebecca. "Sign it now." Rebecca shook her head, backing toward the wall. "Tyler, please. Not in front of—" His hand came up fast, open palm, connected with her face hard enough that her head snapped sideways. I stopped breathing, Barbara's voice sharp and cruel. "Worthless, just like I always said." Rebecca tried to reach for her phone on the counter. Tyler got there first, grabbed it, smashed it against the wall, plastic and glass exploding. "You'll sign those papers," he said, "or you'll never see Grace again." Then Barbara threw her wine, red liquid splashing across Rebecca's face, her green dress dripping onto the hardwood floor I'd helped them refinish. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, Grace, 5 years old, crying, hands pressed against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. The video ended. I sat there, hands shaking, jaw locked so tight my teeth hurt. I played it again. This time I saw the papers Tyler had been waving. Transfer documents. I could make out the letterhead even through the phone's grainy footage. Deed transfer forms. He'd been trying to force Rebecca to sign over the house. The $425,000 house that I'd purchased with her name on the title, not his. The house that represented her security, her independence. The one thing Tyler couldn't touch. Until tonight. Third time through, I made notes. Timestamps, actions, evidence. 30 years as a family law attorney meant I knew exactly what I was looking at. Assault. Attempted coercion. Witness tampering destroying that phone meant destroying Rebecca's ability to call for help. And Grace traumatized watching her father assault her mother. My phone rang. Matthew Ross. "Mr. Foster, I'm so sorry." I heard shouting. Looked out my window. I almost called the police, but I thought you should know first. "You did the right thing." My voice came out steady. Controlled. Nothing like the rage burning through my chest. "Send me the original file. Email. Right now." "Of course. Are you gonna—" "I'll handle this." I hung up, opened my email, waited for Matthew's message to arrive, downloaded the original video file to my laptop, my tablet, uploaded it to 3 separate cloud servers, backed it up on 2 thumb drives. Then I called up my own camera footage. September 15th, October 3rd, October 28th, November 19th. 4 months of Tyler shoving, grabbing, intimidating. 4 months of Barbara's cruelty. 4 months I should have acted on sooner. I grabbed my keys, my laptop bag, my phone charger. The Bennett estate mediation could wait. Those families had been fighting for 2 years. They could fight for 2 more days. Right now, my daughter needed me. My granddaughter needed me. I walked out into the December rain, not bothering with a coat. The 195-mile drive to Austin had just become the most important journey of my life. Interstate 35 stretched empty ahead of me. Past 11 on a Friday night before Christmas, most folks were home with family. I pushed the rental sedan to 80 windshield wipers beating against the December rain. 3 hours from Dallas to Austin, 3 hours to prepare. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat, angling the screen so I could see it and the road. Pulled up my cloud storage. 3 months of camera footage from Rebecca's house, organized by date. September 15th, kitchen. Tyler shoving Rebecca into the refrigerator over grocery bills. She'd caught herself on the counter, said nothing. Just stood there taking it, while he screamed about wasting his money. His money, in a house he'd never paid for. October 3rd, living room. Barbara on the couch, wine in hand, monologuing at Rebecca for 20 minutes about bad parenting, while my daughter stood silent, absorbing the abuse like she deserved it. Grace had been at school. Thank God for small mercies. October 28th, dining room. Tyler throwing a plate. Ceramic exploding against the wall, 3 inches from Rebecca's head. He'd been drunk that time, too. Seemed to be a pattern. November 19th. Barbara dumping Rebecca's dinner straight into the trash. Inedible garbage, just like you. My daughter had cooked Thanksgiving dinner 2 days early practicing, trying to be perfect. It hadn't mattered. I'd watched these clips before, made notes, built a timeline, but I hadn't acted. Kept telling myself I needed more evidence, needed to be certain, needed to approach this strategically. What I'd really been doing was hoping I was wrong. I switched to my email archive. Found the thread I'd discovered 2 weeks ago when I'd gained access to Tyler's account through Rebecca's shared family plan. Reading your son-in-law's email felt like a violation, right up until it revealed he'd been planning to violate my daughter. From Barbara, 3 days before Christmas, make sure the old man doesn't come. We need that house. She hasn't signed anything over to you. Time to fix that. Tyler's response. Don't worry, I've got the transfer papers ready. She'll sign one way or another. Barbara again. Good. And if she refuses, remind her what happens to little girls with stubborn mothers. A threat against Grace, in writing, premeditated, beautiful. I'd bought that house for $425,000. Put it in Rebecca's name, not Tyler's. Told her it was security independence, something no man could take from her. Tyler had smiled, played the grateful son-in-law, never complained. 5 years of utilities, property taxes, insurance. New roof last year, $22,000. HVAC replacement the year before, $8,500. Landscaping, repairs, small upgrades that added up. $580,000 I'd invested in keeping my daughter safe. And Tyler thought he could steal it by forcing her signature at his fist. The rain turned to sleet somewhere past Waco. Temperature dropping. Roads getting dangerous. I didn't slow down. Tyler had called me an old man, like age meant weakness. Like 64 years of living meant I was too tired, too distant, too irrelevant to notice what he was doing. Like experience was something to dismiss rather than fear. He'd made a calculation error. Decided I was too busy mediating other families' disasters to pay attention to my own family's crisis. Too focused on work to care about my daughter. Too old to fight back, wrong on all counts. I'd spent 30 years learning how to dismantle lives legally, how to find evidence, how to use the system like the weapon it was, how to be patient, thorough, ruthless when necessary. Tyler thought experience was weakness. He was about to learn the opposite. I pulled up to 4729 Cedar Lane at 1:15 in the morning. Christmas Day, technically. The porch light blazed. Through the front window, I could see Tyler and Barbara on the couch. Bourbon bottle on the coffee table between them. Drinks in hand, celebrating something. Probably thought they'd won. I sat in the car for 30 seconds. Rain drumming on the roof, watching them laugh. My daughter was somewhere in that house, probably. In her room, probably still tasting blood from where Tyler's hand had split her lip. I pulled out my phone, called Austin Police Department's non-emergency line. I need to report a domestic violence incident, 4729 Cedar Lane. I have video evidence, multiple angles. The suspects are currently on the premises. Sir, officers are being dispatched. Please remain in your vehicle. ETA 4 minutes. Understood. I hung up. 4 minutes was 4 minutes too long. I got out of the car, walked up the front path, the same one I'd helped lay 5 years ago, past the garden Rebecca had planted. Up the 3 steps to the porch, put my hand on the doorknob. Locked, of course. Then I kicked it in. The doorframe exploded inward with a crack that echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Wood splintering, lock mechanism ripping free. The door slammed open so hard it bounced off the interior wall. Tyler and Barbara jumped off the couch like startled animals. Tyler's face cycled through shock, confusion, then his default expression, aggression, dressed up as confidence. What the hell do you think? Sit down. My voice came out quiet, calm. 30 years of family law taught me that the quietest voice in the room is often the most dangerous one. Tyler's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Barbara recovered faster, her face twisting into wounded dignity. You can't just break into my house. I stepped inside, glass crunching under my shoes from the broken door. My name on the purchase documents. My money in every wall, every fixture. You're living in my house while you terrorized my daughter. I pointed to the corner of the living room. Small black device mounted near the ceiling, blending in perfectly. Those aren't smart thermostats. They're security cameras. High definition. Cloud backup. 3 months of footage showing everything you've done. Every word you've said. Every time you raised your hand to her. The color drained from Tyler's face like water circling a drain. "What cameras?" But his voice cracked. Somewhere in his bourbon-soaked brain he was remembering the gift I'd installed in September, the devices he'd never questioned. I walked to the dining room table, picked up the papers still lying there, the ones Tyler had been waving in Matthew Ross's video. Transfer documents. Rebecca's signature line, blank. Planning to force her to sign over a $425,000 house? I held them up. That's fraud, coercion, attempted theft. I pointed to the smashed phone on the floor near the kitchen. Screen shattered, case cracked. And destroying her phone so she couldn't call 911, that's witness tampering. Evidence destruction. Sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer, Barbara grabbed her purse like it was a lifeline. "Tyler, we need to run." I smiled, without warmth. "Please do." Nothing says innocence quite like fleeing a crime scene. Red and blue lights suddenly washed through the windows. Tyler bolted. Didn't even hesitate. Just turned and ran for the back of the house. Barbara followed her heels, clicking frantically on the hardwood floors I'd paid to refinish. I heard the bedroom windows slide open, heard them scrambling through. Officers Davis and Miller came through the front door I'd conveniently opened for them, hands on their weapons. "Police hands where we can see them." I raised mine, slowly, calmly. "William Foster, homeowner." I called this in. "The suspects just fled through the back window." Miller spoke into his radio while Davis kept his weapon trained on me. 2 suspects fleeing east side of property, male and female. More sirens, more officers, the house filled with police and flashing lights, and then Rebecca appeared at the top of the stairs. Green dress stained dark with wine, face bruised, lips split and swollen, Grace behind her small hand clutching her mother's dress. Rebecca looked at me, her face crumbled. She came down the stairs and fell into my arms. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." I held her while Grace pressed against both of us. "Shh. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing." Outside I heard shouting, officers giving commands. Then Tyler's voice loud and desperate. "You're destroying my life." I gently moved Rebecca aside, walked to the broken doorway. Tyler stood in the front yard, hands cuffed behind his back, rain soaking through his shirt. Barbara beside him in matching restraints. His face was pure rage, mixed with disbelief. I stepped onto the porch, looked him directly in the eye. "No, Tyler, you did that yourself." On the morning of December the 26th, Judge Patricia Adams signed the emergency protective order. Tyler Bennett and Barbara Bennett were prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Rebecca Foster or the residence at 4729 Cedar Lane. I stood in Amanda Clark's office watching her review the paperwork with the satisfaction of a woman who'd spent 20 years putting abusers behind bars. "This is airtight," she said. "Between the neighbor's video, your camera footage, and the physical evidence, they don't have a defense. Good. William, I've worked domestic violence cases for 2 decades. I've never seen someone this prepared. Most abusers don't realize they're being watched." The arraignment was scheduled for December 27th. I sat in the courtroom gallery as Tyler and Barbara were led in, both wearing county jail, orange hands cuffed. Tyler's face was haggard. 48 hours without bourbon had stripped away his car salesman polish. Barbara looked worse, mascara stained, that entitled expression finally cracking. Judge Adams reviewed the charges with clinical precision. The prosecutor read them aloud. The state charges Tyler James Bennett with assault causing bodily injury, attempted coercion, attempted fraud, witness tampering, and child endangerment. Barbara Jean Bennett is charged as an accomplice. Gary Turner stood, Tyler's defense attorney. Mid-50s, decent reputation, but he looked uncomfortable. "Your Honor, this is a domestic dispute that escalated. My client and Ms. Foster have been married 5 years." "A history of abuse," Amanda Clark interrupted, rising. "Mr. Turner, let's be clear. This wasn't a dispute. This was premeditated fraud and assault. Mr. Bennett attempted to force Ms. Foster to sign over a $425,000 house through violence and threats. He destroyed her phone to prevent her from calling for help. His mother participated while his 5-year-old daughter watched. This is domestic terrorism, Your Honor, not a dispute." Judge Adams nodded. "Bail is set at $75,000 for Mr. Bennett, $50,000 for Ms. Bennett. Protective order remains in effect. Trial date within 60 days. Tyler's brother Scott slumped in the front row. 75,000 meant scraping together 7,500 in cash. His savings, probably. His future. Scott managed to post bail by that evening. I didn't feel sorry enough to stop what came next. While Tyler was being processed out, I was making calls. The first was to an old colleague at the IRS. I'd sent him documentation 2 weeks ago, Tyler's sales records, that didn't match his tax returns. $91,000 in unreported income over 2 years. "We're opening a formal investigation," he told me. "This looks like deliberate fraud, penalties, and possible criminal charges." The second call came from Tyler's dealership manager, Rodriguez. "I heard about the arrest. Is Rebecca okay?" "She will be." "I'm terminating Tyler effective immediately. Zero tolerance policy for pending criminal charges. Can't have that associated with our dealership." By December 28th, Tyler had lost his job, his bail money, and his future. His dealership license would be revoked once the IRS investigation concluded. No dealership would hire him with a felony record. On December 29th, I sat across from Tyler and Gary Turner in a courthouse conference room for a pretrial hearing. Tyler glared at me from across the table. 2 days out of jail hadn't improved his disposition. If anything, reality was setting in. No job, no income, criminal charges, federal investigation, his life circling the drain. "You're destroying my life," he said, voice low and venomous. I leaned forward slightly, met his eyes without blinking. "No, Tyler, you're paying for what you did, in every way that matters." The courtroom was packed by mid-February. 12 jurors sat in the jury box, their faces unreadable. Judge Lawrence Reed presided from the bench, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the light. Tyler sat beside his attorney, Gary Turner, shoulders rigid. Barbara sat 3 rows behind him, her expression cold. I sat with Rebecca, who gripped my hand tightly. Grace was with a social worker in another room. Prosecutor Rachel Freeman stood. "Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence you're about to see is disturbing. But it's the truth. And the truth is what we're here to uncover." She clicked the remote. The screen flickered to life. Matthew Ross's video played first. Christmas Eve, 12:23 a.m. Tyler's voice filled the courtroom. "Sign the damn papers, Rebecca. This house is going to be mine one way or another." His hand swung across the frame, striking her face. She stumbled. He grabbed her phone as she reached for it and smashed it against the counter. Glass scattered. Barbara threw a wine glass. Red liquid splattered Rebecca's blouse. Then Grace's voice cut through. "Mommy, Mommy." Her sobs were raw and desperate. Gas rippled through the jury box. One woman covered her mouth. Another shook her head. Tyler stared at the floor. Rachel let the silence settle. Assault, coercion, witness tampering, child endangerment. 2 minutes and 47 seconds. She played the next clips. Security footage from September through November. Tyler shoving Rebecca against the wall on September 15th. Yelling while Grace hid behind the couch on October 3rd. Throwing a plate on October 28th. Twisting Rebecca's wrist on November 19th, while Barbara laughed. The jurors' faces darkened. One man clenched his fists. A woman wiped her eyes. Rachel displayed an email thread. Subject line, "The plan." She read aloud, "Make sure the old man doesn't show up. Transfer papers are ready. She'll sign one way or another. If she doesn't threaten the kid, that'll break her." Murmurs spread. Judge Reed tapped his gavel. "Order!" Rachel showed the unsigned transfer documents still on the kitchen table. Then the smashed phone, Rebecca's phone, destroyed to prevent her 911 call. The screen was shattered beyond repair. Finally, she held up a piece of construction paper. Stick figures. A large man with red hands raised high. A small woman on the ground. "Daddy Angry," scrawled across the top in wobbly letters. "This was drawn by Grace Bennett 3 months before Christmas Eve," Rachel said quietly. "She's 5 years old. Her grandfather saw this drawing and installed security cameras the very next day, because he knew something was deeply wrong." She placed the drawing on the evidence table. Several jurors leaned forward. One woman's tears fell freely. An older man closed his eyes and shook his head. Tyler's attorney rose to object. Judge Reed waved him down. "Sit down, Mr. Turner." Rachel Freeman rested her case. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the 4-person stood. Judge Reed asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have your honor." "On the charge of assault, How do you find the defendant? Guilty. Attempted coercion? Guilty. Fraud? Guilty. Witness, tampering? Guilty. Child endangerment? Guilty. Each word landed like a hammer. Tyler's shoulders sagged. His face went blank. Barbara sat frozen, her lips pressed into a thin line. Judge Reed turned to Tyler. Mr. Bennett, you are sentenced to 18 months of supervised probation and 3 years of suspended incarceration. You are permanently banned from contacting Rebecca Foster or Grace Bennett. You will repay the Internal Revenue Service $91,000 in full. Tyler nodded weakly. Miss Barbara Bennett, you are sentenced to 12 months of supervised probation and 2 years of suspended incarceration. The same contact ban applies. Barbara stared straight ahead. The bailiff stepped forward and led Tyler from the courtroom. His shoulders slumped. His face was hollow. He looked smaller, somehow diminished. Rebecca squeezed my hand. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. For the first time in months, she looked free. I watched Tyler disappear through the door, and I realized finally that every action has a consequence. His had just caught up to him in every way that mattered. Over the next 2 months, Tyler's empire crumbled piece by piece. The IRS investigation moved swiftly. The $91,000 in unreported income was only the beginning. Penalties and interest pushed the total to over $120,000. Tyler's dealership revoked his sales license within a week of the verdict. No car lot in Texas would touch him after that. He found work at a warehouse on the outskirts of Austin. $14 an hour. 50 hours a week if he was lucky. After probation fees, IRS garnishments, and court-ordered child support, he cleared about $800 a month. Barely enough for rent in a crumbling one-bedroom apartment off East Riverside Drive. Scott Hayes Tyler's older brother stopped answering his calls by March. The $75,000 Scott had scraped together for bail gone. Tyler had promised to pay him back. He never did. Scott moved on. Barbara fled to Arizona in early March. She told no one she was leaving. I found out through Amanda Clark, who received a forwarding address for legal correspondence. Barbara moved in with her first ex-husband in Tucson. She never contacted Tyler again, not once. The divorce was finalized in April. Rebecca was granted full custody of Grace. Tyler was allowed supervised visitation every 2 weeks, 30 minutes at a community center under the watch of a court-appointed monitor. He showed up twice. The first time Grace cried and clung to Rebecca. The second time Grace refused to speak to him. Tyler stopped coming after that. He told the monitor he couldn't afford the gas. I kept tabs on him through Amanda. Not out of vindictiveness, but because I needed to know Rebecca and Grace were safe, and because I wanted to see if Tyler would learn anything from what he'd lost. He didn't. One evening in late April, I drove past his apartment complex. I didn't plan to. I was meeting Rebecca and Grace for dinner at a restaurant nearby, and the route took me down East Riverside. I saw Tyler standing on the balcony of a second-floor unit, staring at something in his hands. A photograph, maybe, or a phone screen showing an old picture. He looked thinner, older, defeated. I didn't stop. There was nothing left to say. Rebecca and Grace had moved back into the house on Cedar Lane by then. Rebecca's name was on the deed. It had always been on the deed. Grace had started kindergarten at a new school. She was drawing again bright, colorful pictures this time. One of them hung on Rebecca's refrigerator, a stick figure family. A grandpa, a mommy, and a little girl holding hands under a smiling sun. At the bottom in careful letters, Grace had written, "Grandpa saved us." Tyler had called me an old man as if age meant weakness, as if experience meant nothing. He'd looked at my gray hair and my quiet demeanor and assumed I was powerless. He'd learned otherwise. The hard way, every action has a consequence. Tyler had spent years building a life on lies, intimidation, and cruelty, and when the foundation cracked, the whole structure came down. Not all at once, piece by piece, methodically, inevitably. He'd called me an old man. He'd been wrong about what that meant, and he'd paid for it in every way that mattered. May arrived in Texas with bluebonnets blooming wild across the roadsides. I drove down to Austin on a Saturday afternoon, the windows down the air warm and sweet. The house on Cedar Lane looked different. The exterior had been repainted soft gray with white trim, new shutters, fresh mulch. Yellow roses Rebecca had planted herself lined the walkway. Grace answered the door before I could knock. Grandpa! She threw her arms around my waist. Hey, sweetheart. I ruffled her hair. She'd grown taller. Her face had filled out. The dark circles were gone. Rebecca appeared in the hallway, smiling. A real smile. You're early, she said. Traffic was light. Inside the house had transformed. The walls were cream, now brighter than the dull beige Tyler had insisted on. New curtains hung in the living room, light blue with white flowers. Sunlight poured through the windows. The air smelled like lemon cleaner instead of stale beer. We redid the back bedroom, Rebecca said. Grace wanted an art room. The room that had been Tyler's office, cluttered with unpaid bills and whiskey bottles, was now bright and organized. A wooden easel stood in the corner. Shelves lined the walls, filled with construction paper and paint sets. Grace's drawings covered every surface. I paint every day, Grace said proudly. In the kitchen, I started on dinner. Spaghetti with marinara, Grace's favorite. She colored at the breakfast bar while Rebecca set the table. Halfway through chopping tomatoes, Grace ran over. Grandpa, look what I drew. I knelt down. The drawing was different from the one months ago, the angry man with red hands. This one was bright. 3 stick figures in front of a yellow house, a tall man with gray hair, a woman with long brown hair, a little girl with pigtails, all smiling. A giant sun filled the corner. At the bottom, in careful letters, Grandpa saved us. My throat tightened. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Grace beamed. I made the sun really big because it's happy now. I love it. I pulled her into my arms. You're safe now, Grace. Always will be. After dinner, Rebecca and I sat on the back porch while Grace chased butterflies. The bluebonnets had spread into the garden. Grace's laughter rang out bright and carefree. Rebecca wiped her eyes. Thank you, Dad, for seeing what I couldn't. I squeezed her hand. That's what fathers do. Her voice trembled. I never thought I'd feel safe again. You fought for that, I said. You survived. You protected her. I just leveled the playing field. Rebecca looked at Grace crouched in the grass, studying a butterfly on a bluebonnet. She's different now. She sleeps through the night. She doesn't flinch. She draws happy things. She's healing, I said. So are you. Grace stood and ran toward us, her arms outstretched like wings. Her laughter echoed across the yard. 6 years old, and finally free. Tyler thought experience was weakness. He looked at my gray hair and quiet demeanor, and assumed I was powerless. He was wrong. There's no excuse for abuse. Never. Not stress. Not alcohol. Not family loyalty. Not love. Nothing justifies putting your hands on someone weaker than you. Nothing justifies terrorizing a child. Every action has a consequence. Always. Tyler thought he could control Rebecca through fear. He thought he could intimidate me because I was older. He learned otherwise. Not through violence. Through the law. Through evidence. Through patience and strategy. Age isn't weakness. It's a strategic advantage. 30 years as a family law attorney taught me how systems work, how to document, how to wait for the right moment, how to build a case so airtight that no amount of charm or excuses could dismantle it. Evidence and preparation win every battle. Security cameras, financial records, witness testimony. These tools are available to anyone willing to use them, and when used correctly, they're unstoppable. Fathers protect their children, no matter the distance, no matter the cost. Grace's drawings told the story, from Daddy Angry, a stick figure with red hands hovering over a fallen woman, to Grandpa Saved Us. 3 smiling figures under a bright yellow sun. That transformation is everything, from silence to voice, from fear to freedom, from victim to survivor. Rebecca didn't just escape. She reclaimed her life, her home, her daughter's future. And Grace, she's 6 years old now. She sleeps through the night. She doesn't flinch at raised voices. She draws happy things. The justice system works when you have evidence. Abusers rely on silence. They count on shame. They bank on isolation. Break it. Document everything. Reach out. Act. It's never too late. Looking back at my story, I realize I waited too long. I saw the signs months before I acted Grace's drawings, Rebecca's evasive answers, Tyler's contempt. Don't be like me. Don't wait for the crisis. If you see someone you love being hurt, act immediately. Document everything. Reach out. Use every legal tool available. God gives us instincts for a reason, trust them. This is a true story, and it taught me that silence protects abusers. For 30 years as a family law attorney, I thought I understood domestic violence. But when it entered my own family, I learned the hardest lesson. Love alone doesn't save people. Action does. God doesn't ask us to be passive. He asks us to be righteous, to stand up, to protect the innocent. These grandpa stories aren't just about me. They're about every father, grandfather, parent who refused to look away. This true story is my testimony that the justice system works when you fight for it. God blessed me with knowledge of the law. I used it to save my daughter and granddaughter. You have gifts too. Use them. Rebecca is thriving now. Grace draws bright, happy pictures. And I sleep knowing I didn't stand by while evil happened under my nose. God sees everything. He saw Tyler's cruelty. He saw my preparation, and he saw justice delivered. Don't wait like I did. Every day matters. Every voice counts. If this true story moved, you share it with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment below, telling me your thoughts. Have you faced something similar? Subscribe to this channel for more grandpa stories about courage, justice, and faith. Your support helps these stories reach people who desperately need to hear them, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is refuse to stay silent.